When the competitor shows up and you don't even have a video on YouTube.
I'm like, stop. Okay, I get you know the lingo. I know you've watched a couple YouTube videos and now you're telling me why you didn't perform is...
Do it. Obviously, you can do it yourself, but that takes time.
Episodes. If you can't show analytics, then you're never going to be able to show success. You need to show the analytics and don't thought, oh, I'll make the change here. And I didn't really know what that actually meant.
Welcome to the Infinite Creative Podcast. My name is Fitz, and this hombre over here is...
My name is Sean.
Today we're talking about ADHD, and I'm really strong with the ADHD one here. And I'm gonna mention a couple things then, what I'm doing, because like I do a lot of things. I do like lens stands, I do videography, and yeah, I dabble in a lot of things, but you have like your ship like really tightly in order. But another thing that we're talking about,
But yeah, well, cool. Well, yeah, and I guess, so we had a couple topics we had in mind before this podcast. So, so I think we're going to kind of kick it off here with the small things, right? Like how, I definitely know in my world that I get caught in this place where I get caught in these kind of productivity type of schedules of like, how do I do things, right? I get a project and I do all these things, and then, that's fine when everyone's happy, right? And the project's going right and everyone's happy. But when things aren't going well or it could go better, then your brain goes right to like, I need to change. Things need to change. Things need to get better. And, I think we've both seen people that kind of take too extreme of a change then, right? They're like, a client's unhappy. I need to change career paths. Or someone's not, something's not clicking here. So I'm going to throw out everything, or I'm going to buy $5,000 worth of gear. That's going to solve everything, So one thing I guess we wanted to talk about today was that, the small changes can really make a big reward. And I guess, so when we say small changes, I guess, what do you think in your head when you think of a small change that you can make that could make a big impact?
So first off, like having enough sleep so that you're like more relaxed, more energized for the day. That would be like a small change that you could do that affects everything, for example. But today we want to talk a little bit about like multiple small things that you can implement in your business. And it can be literally just like setting up an email list or email campaign, or it could be like affiliate program, because like all those little things can change over time everything. Because like having now, like let's say you're changing and switching up everything, first off you have new problems, things are not working out because like now you changed everything, now everything is not working right because you have to optimize. And after you have optimized, you can implement little things that become like very effective. For example, like that email list. Let's talk about that for example, because you do that, or?
In terms of having my own email list, I do that. I think that was a small change at the time. I mean, it's probably a good example of like a change that seemed small, but it actually was too much for me. So, right. So when I first started my email list, I was like, well, I need a marketing arm, right? And for me, I'll be honest with everyone out there, I don't have great digital marketing. I've said it past time again. Go to Sean Craig Creative on Instagram. Please add me. It would be great to break 200 followers someday. It would be, I would have a party. It would be Crystal. It would be amazing. But, so I'm not very popular, right? So I was like, okay, well, I do email marketing for clients. I see that works. I have clients that literally they didn't believe in email marketing, and I got them on the hook. I said it's going to be cheap. Hey, let's just do some experimentation, right? Let's see what the numbers are. And now email marketing just sells them out immediately. They put out a new product, we send out an email, within an hour, all sold out. Yeah. So it's like this kind of magic equation now. So I was like, okay, well, I'll make this change. It's just a small change, right? But the small change got too out of hand, which can sometimes happen to me. And I think it can happen with a lot of creatives, right? We look at something and we're like, hey, I'll just start this new thing, right? It's not going to be that big a deal, right? Fast forward 4 hours later, because we're creative and we want it to be awesome and new and original, and it's too much, right? And so for me, with my email list, I built it and then I just haven't really touched it. And that's something that I think a lot of creatives do that's wrong, and I do that's wrong, is that you get this big like, okay, I'm going to change things, I'm going to do stuff, but then you fast forward and you just don't keep that consistency, right? It almost becomes too big. And something that I think I do wrong is I make things too big, right? Like it's, instead of like it being that small change that we're talking about, like it's just an email list, and I could be putting out like a very simple piece of content wouldn't have to take too much time. It could be written by AI even and put it out every month, but I don't. And so it's like in my own head now, that small little thing has become too big for me to kind of sustain. Now I still have the email list, so if any of you want to sign up, go to SeanCraigCreative.com, sign up for the email list. But
So now I have to interrupt you though. So first off, I thought like making that small thing is a positive thing. So is that small thing so sometimes a bad thing? Because like in my head, let's say I implemented Amazon affiliate, and I'm like, okay, I made a small change and it didn't require any more action afterwards, but this thing is still running. The website is still up. The blog post is still up. The video is still up and it's generating me money, and it's like passive. And I'm like, I did one piece of work. It didn't basically requires me to do more work, but it's just like a small link I have to implement, and obviously mentioned that hey, it's affiliate, but it has a huge effect of like my bottom line because like, oh, made a small change, now it's reoccurring. So I thought like, why is it a negative thing now for you?
Well, it's not negative, right? It's not negative. So in your case, right, the affiliate marketing is really cool because it's like, it's kind of out of your hands, right? You don't have to do a lot. It's just a link, or it says, it kind of does a little bit in terms of how you use some tools, right? So like, let's say you have an affiliate kind of level thing with one creative tool, but yet there's another creative tool that's better that isn't an affiliate type of thing. It may push you to use the worst tool. So that's maybe the worst thing about affiliate marketing, but other than that, it's pretty hands-off, and that's what's nice. It's a very easy, small change that you can really implement and then just kind of forget about to a degree and just keep putting it in your flow maybe. But it's a very easy to add in, right? It's just a link, or it's just a thing. It's just a discount code. So it takes very little time. The email marketing, same thing, but for me, it just got a little too big in my head. So it's like, but if I would have kept it as a small thing, if I would have kept it at this thing of like, actually map it out too. I think that's the thing too, is like we think of these small changes, but we don't think about the life of that small change. We think of it like today, like I'm going to make this change today, but we don't think about like in 3 months, what does that look like? Does that mean I'm posting something in that newsletter once a month? Like what does that mean? And I think that was the problem there, is I hadn't defined that. I just thought, I'll make the change here, and I didn't really know what that actually meant.
Yeah, what that entails. Sometimes it's like you do like a little thing and you're like, a blog post a day is easy. So you write a blog post a day and it takes you 30 minutes or an hour, and you're just like, now I need images as well. And now it's like 1 hour and 30, if not 2 hours. And it adds on, and then like, wait a minute, I also need to make now like the SEO of the page, like everything has like a rat tail. But in this episode, I kind of want to talk more about little things, like actually things that will change the outcome of your daily routine if you just implement a little bit. Are there like things in your world where you're like, okay, what would change the outcome of like your work that don't require a lot of work?
So one thing that I've started to do that I talked about in the last podcast was starting to be better at just emailing people back immediately. And that, some people would argue that's not necessarily a small change, but I think it is, where so let's say you get sent.
It's a small rule.
You get sent by a client's. You get sent a big long email, right? Before I see this long email, especially if it's a lot of feedback and you see that a lot of it's going against what you want. Yeah. My first inclination when I get that email is to get annoyed and be like, you know what? I'm doing something else. I don't even want to deal with this right now, and I'm not even going to get to it today anyway. So I'm not even going to answer them because now they made me kind of mad, and I just don't even want to. Where now, like the small change I'm making is like, no, send them the quick email that says, thank you, I'll get to this by this time tomorrow or something. Like even if you're not going to get to it today, just be like, thank you for sending it, I totally got it. Just even saying that simple thing of like, thanks for sending it, I'll get to it, is way better than saying nothing, than just being like,
ooh, gotcha. That is powerful, because like I also think like, let's say you basically you may the rat tail of the action or the new thing can be sometimes really long, because that email could be a long email. But I think it's also leading into a thing where it's like, okay, you got to have rules, and simple rules are easy to follow and have a big impact. Like you said, like I just write an email and it's a simple rule, and I don't respond to whatever the email said, but I acknowledge that I got it, and that's all I do.
Right. And I think like some of these small things that we do are to save time later, so for me, like, so to kind of build on that, right? So I'm trying to get to this place of like the next small thing, and that I'm trying to do is, so you write that email. If you are going to get to it tomorrow, like, so let's say I got a lot of edits. There's no way I'm going to get to it today. I write an email that says, okay, cool, I got your email, I'll get to it. But then immediately right after that, then I'm immediately scheduling it in my calendar. Like that second, I'm being like, And it's a simple thing. Yet again, like don't let the rat tail get too big in that scheduling. Just put a block of time that says, boom, this project, and you just schedule it. So it's scheduled out. You've already told them you're handling it, and I'm starting to get better at that. And I've already noticed that people love that when you tell a client, hey, I'll get to it by this time tomorrow, and you actually do. People love that because then they can trust you. Now they don't feel like they have to keep track of you.
There's another thing that you just said that is very powerful, and it's a little thing. It's an absolute little thing, but it will save you money, like in the thousands sometimes. Setting an alarm for a subscription that is renewing, using that calendar, because like you said, like you're setting an alarm in the calendar, you can use that for everything. And if you are about to, let's say, pay for a subscription, it's just like, okay, immediately pull up the calendar immediately and just
100%.
like set that reminder, because like you told me
100%.
like, set a reminder for your LLC to renew and do everything and file your taxes on time. This is just an alarm in your calendar, and that's what it should be. And I'm like, wow. This alone can save you a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. And brain power, right? Because that's the big thing, right? If we have all this crap in our head that we're like, oh, yeah, remember to redo your LLC. Remember to get back to that one lady that emailed you 3 days ago. Remember to do that. You're just not going to remember it. And then that's the worst feeling is when you start to realize you're letting stuff fall. Oh, I forgot to email her back. Like I said, oh, crap, my LLC expired last month because I didn't do that correctly. And so it's, so for everyone out there, power tip is use something like iCalendar or something where you can create a repeatable thing. And then, so if you have like a membership, let's say that renews once a year, then have it repeat once a year. And then even have it repeat a day or two early. So if you're like, oh crap, I don't use this tool anymore, you're getting an alert 2 days before it renews. So you can delete it. I've kind of become a master of that, of deleting subscriptions right before they renew.
Yeah. Sneaky. I think like that is like we said, a small thing that you can implement. And like for example, like going back to the affiliate marketing, that is also very powerful, because like you sign up with the program and then you post the link on your work or on your blog post or whatever it is, and it's there. You don't have to do anything, and it will maybe accumulate like a lot of money and views over time. And it doesn't require like a lot of head space, but you also should check in on it and see, did I actually got approved for Amazon affiliate or Walmart or a Best Buy or whatever it is, because every big company has an affiliate program usually, and if you fit the criteria of having enough unique followers or unique traffic, they usually will approve you. And I think like that is like a small change that can impact your work a lot. But also, like on YouTube, for example, there's like an overlay feature where you can implement links that goes off-site, basically. Like, let's say you have a YouTube video, put like a little overlay on there, like it's like kind of like a pop-up thing where you can click on a different link and then you go off the website, and that could be a store, it could be affiliate program, it could be anything.
Yeah. And we've never rolled out on our own videos for some reason. I don't know, but we could do that.
Oh, yeah. It is the little things. It really is the little things. Sometimes I'm just like, yeah, we should do that. I'm like, knowing and doing are two pairs of shoes, apparently.
But but small implementations, right? I think that's something that we've talked about in this podcast that we did early on, and I think we're going to try to get back to is kind of this incremental changes, incrementally getting better, right? I think it's a good way to always think things, through. One thing that we still do that it isn't on this podcast is that, we, after the podcast is done filming, we do always kind of review where the heck we are right now. Yeah. Like what's the podcast doing? How well is it doing? Yeah. But admittedly, sometimes those talks get to a point where we're both just like shaking our heads and we're just like, we're overwhelmed. I don't know how to do these changes. This is too much. Like we can't do this. So, but yet again, it's a small things, a small little changes, and for me, I think it also is outside of that. It's also in the, how do you wake up? Are you drinking water? Drink a glass of water in the morning, drink a glass of water in the afternoon.
Stuff like that has an impact.
Yeah. But and so it takes about 30 days to make a habit, right? So it's like you have to really do something consistently for 30 days straight, and then it starts to really become that habit. And, the way to do that's one thing at a time, one small thing at a time. Yeah. And that can be hard, especially if you feel like there's a lot of changes that need to happen really quickly.
Yeah, everybody says, like, especially in business, is like, how do you eat an elephant? And it's like, bite by bite or something like that. I probably butchered that. Yeah. But it's like you break everything down into little things and you just do little things. And after it becomes a habit, it's like self-propellant. And you don't have to think about it, you just do. Yeah. And I think that is also, like, very powerful because, like, yes, we forget sometimes to do the things that we want to do, and yes, we should have implemented those links and those stuff, but that goes back to the ADHD.
Yeah, so let's get into ADHD for a second.
Yeah.
So for anyone that's kind of new to this podcast, I think like out of the two of us, I think you've taken the kind of the role of the ADHD. But I would say in some circles I have ADHD. Some people would say that I'm the ADHD person.
Yeah.
A lot of creatives out there, right? I think we all a lot of creatives have at least a little bit of ADHD, I would say. Just because that's just kind of that's how creativity works. That's how you have weird ideas, is you just go boo, boo, boo. You're shooting in all different directions, connecting things that didn't exist, but now they are connected. And so ADHD can kind of be a friend in some cases in a creativity level, because you're able to like pivot and do things quickly.
Yeah.
But I guess, speak to ADHD and how it can be kind of harmful for a creative.
Oh, harmful. Oh, yeah. So there's like a couple things that are like necessarily to be successful in business or with anything in life. And it's like being like, first off, have the mindset that you can do it, and then you actually have to do the actions that you need to do. But all that doesn't really matter if you don't have the consistency. And ADHD is, you do a lot of actions. You really believe you can do it, but do you have the consistency? Because like you get like really fired up, like affiliate marketing. I do this and I do that, and let's start a blog post. Let's start a YouTube channel. Let's start this and let's start that. And that is like one of the things that is the drawback. And for people with ADHD, it's very powerful to implement little things that have an impact, that don't require extra work. That's why I was like, oh yeah, you started a YouTube channel and a blog post, and now you're starting an affiliate marketing. Just put a link there and then forget about it, and now you have money coming in every month. That is powerful. But also the downside is like, how do you build momentum if you're not consistent, And that's where it's like a little change that can have a big impact. Going back to what we talked about, is like having a routine with somebody who's very on point. What is AKA you?
Hey, there I am. Get someone like me. Because it's exciting, right? I guess that's why it's interesting. It's like, it's almost like these dopamine releases you get when you're like, oh yeah, we'll do this. Oh yeah, we'll do this. So I kind of seen you in that mode, and it's really funny. I mean, like where you're kind of like, yeah, we'll do that. Oh, we'll do that. Yeah, that's a baller idea. We're doing that now.
Renaissance fair. Let's do that.
Yeah, we'll do that. Everything, and it's good. It's good because you've always had this kind of blind positivity to things, which is good. That can definitely be good, where a lot of people can be very nervous of new things and trying new things. And so I think there is that, where like half the population definitely can be too scared to start new things, but then the ADHD people, maybe while they're not, it's good that they're not scared. They're not really thinking it through before they jump into it. They're just jumping into it as quickly as they can.
On that note, though, jumping into it is like kind of the thing that you need to do. It's like, you cannot be like, oh, I'm 100% sure that will work, because like you said, like you're like a realist versus like being a pessimist or optimist, where me as ADHD person, I'm like, there's only you do it or you don't, and it's like, and if you don't try it, you don't know if it will work out. And that could be like, let's try if I can make art, and as long as you try, and it's like, maybe it sticks with you, but you have to try first. And it cannot be like, I'm a realist now, and what are the chances of me actually doing this and succeeding? Obviously zero, but if you do it, then it becomes above zero. It becomes like 1. Oh, now you do it twice or 3 times. Now we're at like a 5% chance. Now you're doing it 20, 30 times. And it's like, the chances are going higher, but it's still not 100,
Yeah. Well, and I think the biggest thing there is the reviewing ideas, right? I think if like you're someone out there that you struggle, you don't struggle with coming up with new ideas, but you struggle with focusing on what's the right idea, is all I would say is like, just add a new step in the process then, right? Of like, if you're like, let's say you're a creative and you're trying to find new ways to market yourself, and you've got that kind of ADD, like, oh, I'll quickly think of things, I'll quickly do things. Get a piece of paper and write them down first, right? You don't have to jump into something. You can get everything on a list. Use that ADD superpower. Put on a timer for 10 minutes and be like, how many good ideas can I come up with in 10 minutes? Go.
Yeah.
And really release that ADD. Let it fucking work for you. Like, put in that fuel into the engine. Then boom, and then choose one. Then take the second deposit. Maybe even sleep. Take one whole dang day, come back, see all the dumb ideas, but then find the gold nugget, and then spend time.
Yeah, on that note, I'm just like, how you can fuel this superpower, coffee. Jesus, you will go off the rails. And obviously, it's not a good combination if you're all jacked up on like ADHD and coffee, but the random results that you will get, they're magnificent, but I think like that can be really good, but also very harmful, because like there's things that you can do to amplify your results, but also like the downsides will be amplified too.
Well, yeah, I think you bring up a good point. I think a lot of people, we associate things like coffee with getting a lot done, because we have, right? There's been that, we all have that memory in our head of that one time we did coffee and we just like destroyed the world. We were amazing. We got everything done. And I think I do this a lot too, where I'm just like, if I just insert more coffee, more productivity will come out. If I just put more coffee in, more productivity will come out. But then you crash later in the day, or you get that ADD hard where you're just like, oh yeah, I'm doing stuff. Your eyes are just vibrating out of your head. And so it's like it's I haven't got here, but in a perfect world there's a place where you don't drink coffee till noon, that you like you get your health up so good through natural factors, right? So you get up, you get out of bed, you get moving, you drink a cup of water right out of the get-go, you do some yoga or a workout, then you put on your shoes, you go walk around the block and get that morning sun in your retinas in the morning and get that circadian rhythm going. You could start doing that stuff. I haven't done this, but a lot of us, we don't. We kind of take that shortcut. We're just like, well, I'll just get a lot of coffee, I'll sit down in front of the computer, get jacked as much as possible, and and over the years that coffee has less and less of an effect either that's positive. Yeah. So it's like now I drink coffee just to wake up. It doesn't get
kind of like a placebo effect nowadays. I'm just like, does the coffee even do anything for me besides like fixing my addiction? But I'm like, on the one side, there's many more sins you could commit, and this is like a little one, so coffee is fine. But you're right with that. It will not change anything or everything.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, implementing those little things like a cup in the morning.
Yeah. So it's like small changes, right? And it's hard because sometimes it gets harder before it gets better, right? Like if you need to work out, that first workout's terrible. You're like, God, I feel like crap. It's like, you don't see the results immediately. So it's like stuff like that. That's the thing about the small things, is you may not see the results immediately, and the results may be very subtle. It may take 5 to 10 small things for you to actually even see results. And I think that's the hard thing too, right? So let's say you implement that. You don't drink your coffee now until noon. It may take weeks and you're sitting there struggling through it. Like, it's not like the productivity's gotten better. It's not like the clients are any happier. And so you may be like, it may push you to go back, but like I said, just get to the 30-day mark and then decide. Then be like, you know what, maybe coffee isn't a big deal. And you know what, I'm not crashing as much in the afternoon. And
true.
So yeah, so the ADD part is difficult, right? Because I think we all kind of have it. I think it's like, it's foolish for us to say there's just these people that have it and these people that don't.
Yeah.
I think we all kind of have this mixed bag, and I definitely know that I have ADD too sometimes. So you're not alone.
Yeah. So first off, like I think like those character stats from like the video game, that one has the strength, then this one has this and intelligence, and and then you draw the connection on what level are you? Are you a level 10 strength? But you're like, and there's all those like attributes, and we all are on a spectrum. It's either like, oh, he's maybe less smart, but he has more strength, or is like more ADHD, and like I feel like in life you can be very successful even though you're like, let's say, not the most intelligent or the most pretty, as long as you max out your strength, and as soon as you max out your strength, you get different results, and different use cases where you become more effective, and you just have to play by the rules of like, oh, now I'm using my strength to my advantage. If I'm a mouse and I'm sneaky, you're fine. But if you're a mouse and you feel like I'm strong and I'll fight cats, well, that ain't working.
Yeah, that's a good point though. Like you definitely should always lean in your strengths and identify those, because you do have them. I think that's something that's important for everyone out there to know, that if you don't feel like you have strengths, like you just haven't found them yet. You don't know them, and half the time you have to ask someone else. Ask a mentor or someone who do you think my strengths are, and sometimes they'll tell you stuff that surprises you, that you're like, sometimes the things you think are the weakness is actually the strength. So
that's a big one, because like I don't know if you have that here in the US, but when I was a kiddo and I was in school, and you like write down your strength. And I'm like, I did not know what my strengths are. I felt like I'm not good at anything, And it's like, now everybody's like telling me, Fitz, you're so social. You're like, oh, you make me talk, yada, yada, yada. Like I had a guest and she's like raving about me. And I'm like, what? I'm just like, you need to have somebody else identify your strengths, and you need to know, can I trust this person? Can I not trust this person? What are the incentives? And it's like, you will see a pattern over time, and you cannot know as a beginner or as a kid like where you're good at and where you're like slacking.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I would say identify the things that do bring you to a depressed place, right? If you do feel like there's this thing you're not doing well or that you're not good enough, try to sit in that enough to identify, well, what is it? Is it what you're wearing? Is it how you look? Is it how you speak? Is it how people interact with you? And if you start to do that, you can really start to lay out a good path forward, right? I mean, so for us as creatives, we have to do that all the time with clients, right? Where we come in and we have to identify their problems. So it's like, turn that lens on yourself. Can you identify what needs to be done? Can you identify... is it more focus? Is it anything? So
yeah.
But you do something right. I think that's the biggest takeaway, is that there's something you do right. But like you said, you didn't know. You thought you had no strengths. No. And I feel like a lot of people are like that. I feel like a lot of people don't know their strengths,
especially as a teenager. If you're a teenager, you're like trying to figure everything out. It's like, oh, I don't like my hair. I don't like this. I don't like that. And then you get caught up in a circle that is not positive.
Yeah.
And that is like a really hard thing to break. You break this by like for me, a big game-changing moment was like, okay, I got my first job, and now I know how to do that job. And then you're like, you teach other people how to do their job, and it's like when you go in an internship, and then you become apprentice, and now you're actually the worker, and now you're teaching the intern how to do the thing, and that is like powerful. And then you build self-confidence, and I'm like, that's why it's like very important to practice stuff and teach stuff in a way. Because then like, oh, I'm good at this or not good at that.
Well, it's true, and I've known this for a long time. Is that you really learn too through teaching, right?
Yeah.
Like teaching actually does help you. Like this podcast, for example, like helps us solidify our own knowledge because we're saying it and we have to describe it.
Yeah.
Especially if someone's like kind of picking it apart, right? Like if you have a student that's actually picking apart what you have to say, and you actually have to describe why something is. You don't just say like, oh, it's something. They're like, well, why is that? And you're like, okay, actually, I haven't thought of that. Why is it that way?
Yeah. That is very powerful too. Like,
yeah,
I have not done that. I think it's like a Chris Doe thing. It's like, oh, why is actually that? And he does that a lot. Like, let's say he is on a call with somebody, and the potential buyer, client, whatever, is saying like, I need like a video, and then he's asking why you need a video. Why you believe that, and that is a very powerful thing.
Oh, 100%, and I think that is the one of the biggest kind of calling cards of someone that's an experienced creative, someone that doesn't want to just assume that this is the solution, and in fact has no problem telling the client we're not going to be a good fit.
Yeah,
that you don't need a video. I'm a videographer, but you don't need a video.
Yeah, for some people it's hard.
Oh yeah, especially when you're in this desperation place, right, where you need clients. So the idea of having a prospect that you essentially tell them, no, you don't need me, bye. That's a hard thing to swallow.
Yeah, on both sides, if the client is like, oh, I'm hyped, I want to run Facebook ads, and I'm like, why do you need Facebook ads? Do you even get people from Facebook, or you just want to play around with that? So what made you do that? Or is it just like fear of missing out? Because like you see other people running Facebook ads and it's not working for them, but they spend money on it. You don't know if it's converting or not. There's so many ways how to, like getting like caught up in like a place where you're like, you think you need something, well, what you actually need is something else. What is really hard to tell, but
100%. Especially when it comes to marketing, right? Like if they don't have someone that's in control of their marketing, they don't have a marketing manager, a marketing director, they don't have someone that their sole job is to market for them.
Yeah.
Then it's just them. It's just the business owner, and it's just like you and me. Like we only go off of what I see, right? So there's been plenty of times you've told me, dude, there's this banger idea. I saw a video on YouTube. That's how we're gonna do it. And I'm like, dude, you just saw one video. Calm down. And you're like, no, this is the way though. That's
ADHD.
But that's your clients too, right? They're like, man, I saw this other person that's in the exact same industry did a Facebook ad, and I think it worked perfectly. I loved it. And you don't even know if it worked perfectly. You don't know the analytics, but he thinks, he's like, I love that video, so I'm going to do it too.
Yeah. I think though, on that note, let's say like having that mindset of like, I think I should do this, and do you really need to do? And you have to ask that, why you believe that.
Yeah.
And it's always good to still experiment, because like if you don't experiment, you don't evolve, and you know, like trial and error, that's a little bit of like everything in life, you know. Because if you didn't try to do the podcast, then, or you didn't try to do the YouTube channel, or you didn't try to do the blog post, and you didn't try the Amazon affiliate, you would not know if you now make money from affiliate. You would not know what is the actual impact. And maybe sometimes just having the system in place that you just don't, you know, you touched it, it's there now, and it doesn't perform well. But now you meet like 2 years later a guy who's like, oh yeah, I know everything about Amazon affiliate. I will change your life, you know? And it's like, what?
Well, yeah. And I think like, you know, this podcast is a great example, right? So when we started this podcast, you know, I think we both didn't come at it from a direction of like, I need more clients, or I need more money, so we need to make YouTube videos. Like that wasn't how we went about it at all. The way we thought about it was like, so we have this issue right now of how do we get all of these great conversations that we have, how do we have those work for us, right?
Yeah.
Because we're going to have these conversations anyway. We're going to have coffee and talk about all this cool stuff anyway.
Yeah.
And so when you get to that higher level where you think of the why, so why this podcast? Well, this podcast is a way for us to get the knowledge out there. It's helped us make a few connections. It's helping us build this community. And it's funny because the more videos I watch, like I just watched one yesterday where the entire thing was just a guy essentially saying that if you're a company, if you're a brand and you don't have a YouTube video, then you're being irresponsible. If you're not using YouTube as a company, you're being irresponsible. Any company.
I highly agree. Oh my God. I was on a phone call, so now I have to plug it a little bit, you know. I was on a phone call. Basically, I cold texted somebody on Instagram, and I'm just like,
nice.
Yeah, so I'm like, they responded. They had like 200 followers on Instagram. Like they're being active, doing stuff, but they're being very inefficient, you know. They're basically like, oh, we post a reel, and it's just like them standing there making a video. All of them flopped, but the last one got like 20,000 views. And that's how, and that's how I saw them, you know, like, oh, they're popping up. This is a weird account, and I'm checking them out. And then I'm like, are they maybe a potential client? I've checked them out on YouTube. Do they show up? Didn't show up. But they had a link on their website leading to YouTube, so you could click on the YouTube logo. It's not popping up. And I'm like, the hell? You know, and then I Googled their name. That's what I do. You know, I Google their name and see if they pop up on YouTube. They didn't. Their competitor showed up. And I was like, oh, that hurts. You know, when you're providing a service, I type in their name, they don't show up, but the competitor shows up. Then I'm typing in like what they do in the area. The competitor shows up, and I'm just like, oh, like the competitor is not doing a good job, but they are doing the thing, and that is sometimes more important than, you know, actually being good at it.
Well, yeah. I mean, we live in this time where, you know, and this is going to sound kind of negative, but I'm not meaning it in a negative way. But we're like how people were back at the beginning of the 20th century, right? Where we'd go out for a picnic, and we'd have a picnic and have all this junk, and then I would just put it all over the park, and we'd go get in the car, leave the junk all over the ground, and someone would go pick that up, and we'd drive off. And that's how we are on the internet now, right? Which is kind of bad and good, right? So later there's going to be a lot of junk on the internet. There already is, but like in 100 years, there's just going to be heaps of just junk of content. Yeah. But we're in that place right now of just throw it out there. Just like we're just throwing stuff out in the ocean, and someone may catch it, and then it explodes. So that guy, or that whoever that is that you had, they had a bunch of content that was just crap out there, but they just had one they threw out there, and
it did something.
Yeah, and so for us, we've had that too. We've had a few episodes that, like, depending on the platform, has exploded in popularity, you know, and hundreds of times more than the other episodes. So it's like you have a few of those. It kind of defends all of the losses in between.
Yeah, and you kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work, because, like, it's the little things, you know, changing, like, let's say the titles, for example. I think that was the biggest impact, you know, when Spotify, people search, like, on Google, and they type in phrases, the phrases is like the phrases search, and then you pop up as a podcast under that phrase, and now people are clicking the phrase no matter what the content is. If we would have called it episode 10, who cares?
Yeah, who gives a crap?
Yeah, but you're like, you know, it's that little change, that little experiment that changes everything, you know.
Yeah,
and that is like very powerful. And as soon as you understand the pattern and why something is happening, then you can implement big changes. And I'm like, now this is my big thing. Like, if I see a company and I'm like, I type in your name and you're not popping up, I'm like, this is now my new pitch where I'm like, okay, I'm building packages now for like video services that I can offer. You like the coaching, how to film reels and whatever. But now the new thing is like, oh, maybe I should just repackage it and make sure that you show up when I type onto Google. You at least show up with your company under your phrase and your service in the area, like St. Pete shingles, for example, or whatever,
Yeah.
And it's like a little thing. It doesn't require a lot of work, but if you don't do the work correctly, you will not show up. But if you do it just somewhat correctly, you will show up,
Yeah, and I think 100%, because there is that part of things now, right? And us as creatives, I think it's hard for us to wrap our heads around that, right? So like if I'm an illustrator, I also have to think about SEO. If I'm a photographer, I also have to think about keywords and what
Yeah.
So it's a tough, but it is the reality that we do live in, and and I think like you offering that is not a bad idea, right? I think like I do the same thing in web design, right? Where I'm like, I'll build your website, sure, we'll do all of that, but then there's these other things that can add jet fuel to the website. And how I kind of explain websites to people is it's this huge machine that I've built for you, but if we don't put the right gas in, we're not changing out the oil, we're not doing anything, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if this engine's awesome, it's not going to do anything. If we have nothing going through it, it's useless.
Oh, that's actually very powerful, because like there is a trend of like, oh, I get a website for $20, I get a website for $200, a website for $500, or maybe $1,000, or I'm a web designer and I did 5 websites, or I'm this and I'm that, and it's like, it's really depending on what do you push as the package, what is the benefit, what problem do you solve, and what do you push, and pushing like web design, I think like is like kind of the wrong approach now, because like that is like a pain point that I think is really strong by you. It's like, oh, I'm a web designer, or are you like building a machine that makes money? Do you offer like
That's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. You should like, no, I'm giving you the here's the preset of like, do the email campaign, I do this and I do that, and like the website is like not even on the pitch. I'm just like, that is the unit where you sell through,
Yeah, well, agencies do that. You see agencies do that, but I've seen it also go wrong though with agencies, where I've had clients go like, yeah, okay, I had one guy doing this, one guy doing that, one guy doing this, but none of them talked to each other in the agency, and then they would all kind of gang up on me. So a lot of people actually leave agencies when that type of thing happens too, when they've but that's how agencies do it, right? They have the guy that's the SEO expert, they have the guy that's the website designer, and then so that can work, right? But and I would caution people out there, it can get a little weird if you start to stretch too far, right? So if you're assuming you have a marketing mind, you don't have a marketing degree, you've never done a marketing boot camp, you don't understand the verbiage, the lingo, anything. So if you get too far away from what you do, I've had this happen where I've gotten too far, and then people are able to come in and just steal stuff, because like I can't defend it all. I don't have enough hours in the day to defend all these different channels. So it's hard. You have to sometimes you can give that type of advice, you can add that extra thing. The one thing I would suggest that I would love to see you do, and I would like to do more, is get that trusted network of people. And when I say trusted, I mean, in this case, you have the social media manager, and you're able to either A, subcontract to them, or at least B, even if you're not subcontracting, you guys have such a good ability to communicate about a client that's not like, because the problem I know now is like, let's say you make a video and you need to do that social media stuff. So the social media marketing person, but then you're afraid that once you push it to them, that you're going to lose control of that part. They're going to cut you out of that part completely. So it's like, can you get a relationship where there's still communication, where you both are sharing the communication with the client, like not necessarily you're both talking to the client, but you're both talking behind the scenes, right? So that social media manager is like, hey Fitz, so this is my plans for these things, what do you think about that? And then likewise, you're like, hey, I'm going to release these videos, how does that help your social media plan? And if you can get those trusted partners, which I'm still working on, but those people that you truly trust and you'll communicate with, have your own Slack channel or whatever in the background where you're both just communicating, that's the cool part, because then you're doing an agency, but then you're not being the bad parts of the agency, you're being the good part of the agency.
My problem with agencies in general is like, they promise stuff and they hire professionals, but those professionals sometimes have no fucking idea what they're talking about. And then it's like, oh, they hired a person with a degree, but the person with the degree did not do the work to actually, like post several times, do certain things, but now they're posting and the video gets like a set amount of views, but they don't try the new thing that like the inexperienced, not licensed guy is trying, you know what I mean? It's like, you're posting a YouTube video, it's got 20 views, but you're missing out on the reels because you never experimented with reels, kind of like so.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think
there's a danger with that, like you hire just because of the name and you assume, but they actually caught up in like 20 years ago. That's like big with like older people in agencies where it's like they did stuff a certain way forever, and it's like, oh, it doesn't work though.
Well, yeah, and especially with social media, there's so much changes happening all the time.
Yeah.
So to be a true social media coordinator, to be a true social media mastermind, you have to be constantly going to all the conferences. You have to be playing with all the new tech. You need to be in all the beta programs and alpha programs for things, and you need to be having your finger on that. And a lot of people don't. And honestly, half of it's because there's a lot of people faking social media mastery. They're just like they're a graphic designer who also does social media. They're a videographer who also does social media. So there's not, it's getting that person that just is in love with social media.
Yeah. I think like on that note, like it's really good to measure your impact, let's say you done something and now you multiply that, for example. Let's say, okay, this is what I can offer and this is what I can promise. And then there's like the chance of like, this is probably failing. But there's like little things that you can promise that you tested, and you should promise what you can deliver. And you should not just like, okay, I'm a social media agency and I'm promising now X, Y, and Z, and I'm charging for that, and then you cannot deliver. That is becoming scary. But if you did like an example, for example, where it's like, okay, I'm testing now Reels, and I post one Reel and get this amount, and then the next day, oh, it's not performing like that. But if I run this now over a little bit of a time, oh yeah, I easily can promise like 15,000 views on the YouTube channel. That's easy. If you just post 2 times, 3 times, 4 times Reels a month, that is not a lot. That's what I do on the on the channel, but this is what I can promise. But now, like, oh, let's amplify this times like 20.
Right.
But still, you have to put in the work, and there's a chance that it doesn't turn out. But as long as you don't promise like crazy numbers, like 1 million views or whatever, that is like the thing. You got to try to be honest to the thing. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and it's about the patience, and you have to really, really, I would say to anyone that's in a kickoff meeting, because this is also something that I think even I still mess up with. You get excited, you're like, I'm going to boost your stuff so much. I know all the things you're doing wrong in your social media, so I'm getting really excited in that kickoff meeting of all the things I'm doing. But you have to push that down and be like, also remind yourself and remind the client, it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah, we can make banger posts for the next month, and you're still not going to see any money. Like this, it's an investment. It's going to take time. Okay, it's not boom today. Anytime I do SEO for clients, like on their websites, I've had a few recently where it's like I didn't even make the original website, and I've had to go back through and do all that SEO work. And for anyone that knows SEO on a website, it's not immediate. You're right. Like so it's not like YouTube or something where if I mess with the SEO, you immediately see it's not the same on a website where you have to wait for the search engines to crawl you. I have a developer account where I can kind of ask for search engines to crawl, so that speeds that up. But it was another case where like I had done all these changes, and literally that night the client was like, I just looked and I'm still in the exact same place, and I had to explain that it takes a little time. It's powerful. Not immediate.
Yeah, so that is 100% where it's at, because like, let's say you manage a social media account for 1 month, and you see what happens in the first month. There's no sales coming in, probably. Maybe you're good, or maybe you get lucky, you get a viral post and something's happening. But I think like with like the website, for example, you're completely right there. It's like it's not immediately changing, but it's like it has an impact over a year, has an impact over 3 months,
Right.
If you show up under the search and let's say you list your business on Google, for example, tremendous impact. You maybe get now calls because like they see like who's around. That's one of the things where I want to get into, but I'm like not 100% sure how to do, and but it's like there's little things that you can implement that have an immediate impact on like your general visibility, on like being on the internet, showing up on YouTube on the first page for search results, immediately viewable. But now you maybe have like 10 people looking you up, and it's like, oh, now you have 50 views on a video that is ranked, oh, next month it's 100, and it's a general showing up on that page.
Right.
And that is like the long-term reward, but you have to measure it long term.
Yeah, and I think it's probably obvious just from our conversations, but get good at analytics. I've said it a lot in a lot of episodes. If you can't show analytics, then you're never going to be able to show success. You need to show the analytics, and don't ever think that the clients are going to be the ones to show you analytiks, because for them analytics just means sales. So if they don't get sales, it's a fail.
Yeah.
Where you need to be like, no. There's a sales funnel here, right? So for example, like I could pack 1 million people to click this post and go to your website, but if that flow isn't good, then you're not going to get any sales, and you're going to think it's my fault. So the only way you're going to be able to defend yourself is to show the analytics to prove that. Because yet again, if they don't get any sales, they're going to think the social media sucks, where you're going to need to be like, no, it's not that, it's this part. And that's where it can get kind of tough too, right? I think we all struggle with that as freelancers, where our part of the process is good, but it's not, we don't control the entire sales process, and that can be frustrating, right? You can lead everyone to the cart, but if the cart's not designed well,
that is a big part too, because like you said, data, and on the one side I agree, you should be good at data, but also you should like make yourself a portfolio of like, hey, here's good examples. That's what I do,
that too.
I have the screen recording. If you type X, Y, and Z into Google, I show up, and I send that screen recording to a brand company, and I'm like, hey, I can make a video about your product, and most of them will not say yes but you don't have the subscribers. And I'm like, but if I would name the video for your product, I would show up first page, and I would get the traffic of first page. And that is like different, and the more videos I make in that direction, I will show up and I will get the traffic,
right,
if it's searched. And there's like products that are not searched, and it's like nobody types in X, Y, and Z, and then it obviously doesn't get traffic. But it's like, it's a weird thing, but you need to record your proof. You need to have your proof as a portfolio. You need to showcase that, because that is like, I think, like more important than actually like numbers, because numbers are really weird. I don't trust numbers sometimes, like, I'll buy ads and I get 5,000 views. What is that? What does 5,000 views do for me? I'm like, I don't know. But if I'm like, I show up on the X, Y, and Z, or somebody said like, hey, Fitz did good, now I trust that, because that is a referral. Like, you need to record your portfolio of referrals, testimonials, and results. Like, just recording them. Like, Sean made a website and I never saw his website, and that's like the thing. Like, you need to have like a screenshot of the website, or like a video recording scrolling around. That's very powerful.
Well, yeah. And one thing that I've gotten better with on websites, but I could probably do better in other places too. And especially if you're someone out there that's got to do social media, you got to have these kind of marketing results. Is don't forget, yet again, this is something at the beginning of the process. It's easy to forget because you just want to get the project started. You're so excited. Let's just dive into fixing this thing. Take screenshots of what already exists. Do a before and after. That's the big thing. It's hard for the clients even to remember how bad it was before once you get a couple months down the road. I've literally had clients that have deja vu and think that everything I did has always been the case, even when I came on.
That's my favorite.
And I have to remind them, like, no, this was a crap show when I came in. And they're like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of the stuff was already there. So if you get on, like, let's say you get on the Facebook, someone's Facebook business, and you get access to their Facebook business account today.
Go in there
and screenshot the heck out of it, and even mark down somewhere that this is the day you started, so you can say up to this point this is where we were. Because I've had that too, where like clients like, I'm seeing a little bit up, but it's not where I want it. But then when I take what was there before, where it was essentially going down and now it's going up, then they're like, oh, okay, you've turned this around. Of course I'm not getting sales because it was so bad, but now it's actually to a point where maybe in a month or two we'll start to get sales from this. And because business people get that, they just need to see the proof. They don't want to hear it because they think that it's excuses. I've had this with creatives, where I've had creatives try to make excuses to me, and I'm like, because X, Y, and Z, but I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I think you're making excuses. And I think business owners get that too, especially if they're not creative. They're like, you're just a creative who wants to make more videos. You just want to make more websites.
Somebody is just selling me something. And the thing that is like, we all get numb to numbers, like, let's say the stats are going up, you're just becoming stagnant, and I'm like, this is my new normal. I always got 10,000 views, I always got 15,000 or 5,000 or 100 views. You just get numb to it, and it's like nothing changed. A new guy comes in and maybe it's now 10x, but whatever. It's like I always got 15,000 views, or I always got 1,500, whatever it is. You just get numb to it, and you need either the recall, it is different. Or you need to see the big picture where you see the projection, and like sometimes you don't see that graph going up, sometimes you're just like, it's actually just going like this. But overall, 10 years,
Yeah, well, I think we're entering a new period. Well, not really a new period. I think this period's been going on, but it's becoming more and more obvious that soft marketing works a lot more than hard marketing. And what I mean by that is, you make a video that's like, man, look at this coffee cup, best coffee cup in the world. See?
Delicious. Drink out of that?
Oh my God. And then buy one right now. That doesn't work. Nobody really cares about that. Nobody trusts that because we've all seen a million ads. We've all seen a million influencers. It doesn't matter if I have, Kim Kardashian, like, this is a great cup. Maybe it'll still sell, but it's like people just don't believe that marketing. Now, the soft marketing, like over time, like we have if we started another YouTube podcast where it was just like designers talking about coffee and we just talk about coffee the whole time. We literally just talk about coffee. And then at the very end, we're just like, oh yeah, and we're drinking out of these cups, no big deal. Yeah. That will sell way more. And so that's the period we live in now, is like, don't sell to me, make me fall in love. And then and that's the hard part. That's where it's like, it's going to take time, and you got to explain that to your clients. Like, we have to do the soft marketing. We have to bring them in and invite them in. We don't just want to grab them, throw them in the trunk, slam the trunk hood, and that's our new customer. That's not how it's going to work.
Well, there's a difference though. It will work, but they will hate it. And it is like pushing people away, like you get whenever you start selling, you put up that big for sale sign on, you push a lot of people away, and you have to pick and choose when you push them away. Like if you start off and you sell hard, it is a bad thing, but maybe it's crucial to survive. Let's say you make a hard push in you're beginning a podcast, you're beginning a blog post, and you immediately like, I'm selling out. I'm going to have a sponsored post. Attention, I'm selling out. Do you want to follow that blog post in the beginning? Maybe not. You maybe do. You immediately push people away, and that is fine if you need to have like the $10 in a sale to be motivated. There's a balance of like, okay, how hard do you push? How hard you're like, soft marketing. Obviously soft marketing is the number one thing you should do, but sometimes you need that $10. Sometimes you need that $1 sale. Yeah. It's like, it changes the motivation long term.
Well, 100%. I mean, we're especially in the capitalism world we live in, we are all so in love with money that's like our votes of confidence. So if we don't get the money, we don't think anyone has confidence in us, and that's where we lose the desire, right? So any YouTuber out there that's trying to make money through YouTube, they burn out. Like we've talked about that. They don't even get to, I forgot what it is, but like episode 10 or whatever.
You need 4,000 watch hours, not just minutes. It's like you need 4,000 watch hours, and on average, like, people click on a video for 10, 20, 30 seconds. Getting those 4,000 hours, that is crazy. It's nearly impossible if you're just like, oh yeah, I have one viral video. No, it will not have a big impact on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look at Mr. Beast. It was years before anyone cared about Mr. Beast. You're right. And so, and if you look at his old videos, you can see why. I mean, they were kind of boring, right? Like, so it takes a long time, and you got to be in love with the game. I think that's part of it too, right? Is that, so yet again, if you're kind of someone out there that's handling all these social media accounts for clients and you don't really love the game, you actually kind of hate social media, you may want to reconsider this, because it's going to come through. It's going to come through that you don't want to go to all these different conferences. You don't want to try the new stuff. You're not reaching out to Facebook support to ask when the new tool's available. And so, because you don't love the game. Yeah. So if you don't love the game, you're in the wrong game. And I think we all get caught up in that game because it's needed. People need it. And we see that as creatives, that like, I can create something, but we need a good vehicle for that thing. Yeah. But I think we all just get caught too much out of our lane on that, where it's like, so I guess this is a big ad for social media coordinators, so if you're out there.
I mean, on the one side, yes and no, because like I for example, I love the game, and I'm doing the game for myself, getting the sponsored videos, making bike reviews, and trying to be first on YouTube on certain results, and then come up with content ideas. That is the only reason why I push it for other people, because I do it for myself, and then I see people who want to do it for the money. And as soon as you do something for the money or the client, boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, it becomes nasty and fake and not genuine. It's not effective, you know. And that's when you have social media marketers or like, oh, I want to make my living by just posting pictures and videos, and they never actually done it for themselves, or they done it with no success, and then it's like, oh yeah, it did not work. And the reason why it didn't work is like you don't do it genuinely for yourself, and you're seeing it as a main game, you know. Like if it's the game, you don't even want the client, you just want it to do it for yourself, and then it becomes very powerful. Like and there's then the big difference, and that's when I'm like, oh, people did it, but they've never done it for themselves, and you know, and they judge it from the wrong aspect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, 100%. I mean, it's you have to have the right reason to get into things. I think we also just live in this time. I mean, we bring this up quite a bit on the podcast, but it's a problem that I see everywhere, is that we just are scared to extend our network, or we don't know how to do that. And that's a hard question to solve, right? How do you get a social media manager that's helping you out, yet again, that's communicating with you on that level? How do you get a web designer, right? I think we're trying to figure that out, right? Of like, how do I get you clients, Sean? How do I get you in the process where it doesn't mess up my process, right? How do I get the client to realize that he needs a video and a website? Just like when I do it, it's a little bit easier, right? Because a website needs assets, and you're an asset maker. So anyone that's out there that creates assets, that is a producer, you're actually very easy to link into a project. You're probably the easiest person to link in. And honestly, for that matter, if you're a social media manager that's really good at staying in your lane and making the people that work with you trust you, you're also a very needed person. If you can be that person that's so trusted, you're not going to run away with a client, you're not going to do anything, that's a big deal. So if you're a social media coordinator out there, maybe having an NDA or a non-compete clause that you sign for them, that would help. I mean, if I had someone that was willing to sign something that says, I'm not going to run away with your client, or you can sue me, that's a big deal, because like then I can trust you. Then I'm like, okay, well, let's get you in the loop. I will get you access to everything. I will tell you the bigger plan. I think those types of things are needed. One thing I've noticed in the web design world, for example, is the sexy things to make a new website, but that now we're kind of past that time where everyone is getting new websites. Now almost everyone has a website now, right? Yeah. And some of them are actually well designed, but now nobody ever wants to do the second step, right? No web designer wants to inherit a website. So I'm trying to think like there's a big opening there.
There is, and that is like the thing where I was like talking about. I'm like, I think there's a lot of money to be made in just like, oh, you got a pretty website. Now you pay $200 for a website, but now it does not have like, all the stuff that you need, like the SEO. It does not have like the ADA compliance, and it does not have X, Y, and Z. And as a web designer, I would be like, oh, now I can implement all those things, and upsell you on the risk for like, oh, you did it the cheap way, you did it the wrong way, but here's me. I could roll in and fix it, or maybe make you money with that website. And that is like, everybody likes to have a website. Everybody wants to have like, oh, I have a website, I'll show off my cars, but how do you make money now with that website? And that is like where the experts come in. Like, what value do you really have besides like, for example, just making it pretty, but having an email campaign, or having, like all those extra things where you come in with the expertise and you sell like on top of it,
right, and furthermore, can you inherit a website that is already good? I think that's, yet again, it's so easy for us to get in a project that's dying, it's not doing well, it needs help desperately. It's easy for us to sell ourselves because the bar's low. But can you get in on a project that's already doing well? Because I've run into that too, where the client's like, we have an amazing website, but nobody wants to touch it now. And so now it is going to eventually just fall apart and die, because nobody wants to take control of this awesome website. And for websites, there's lots of different platforms, right? So that's a problem too that I'm trying to solve. So I'm starting to create guides for myself, and of course there's certain things that I'm just gonna have to refuse to use, right? I can't get good at every platform under the sun. So there is gonna be web platforms, especially bad ones like Wix, that I just refuse to use. Like I'm just like, it's just not worth it. I'll lose money. I can't charge you enough. I would charge you more to use Wix than I would to build a whole new custom website. So it's like, so there's that stuff too, but I'm trying to get better at that, of like, right, so if you're Squarespace, you're mom and pop, you don't have any money, and you made this Squarespace and you need to be a little bit better, well, there's now a road for you now in my thing. If you need the custom e-commerce, everything, all the bells and whistles, there's a road for you. And so being able to take in all these projects and do that, one thing that's kind of getting better and better, thank God, in the web design world, I won't go too far down this road, is that it's getting easier and easier to switch between platforms, which is good, right? Like, so I can pull all your data out of a Squarespace and put it in a WordPress without like redoing a lot and stuff. So
platforms are interesting topic in general because like we all know like Apple, Mac, Windows, whatever, and then iPhones, Android, and now you're in this platform, now you're in this ecosystem, and not all of them work well together, but we all have to figure out how do I implement now my Shopify account to my Instagram account. Oh, Instagram is only working with certain like e-commerce websites, or is it Printify? Is it whatever, And you need an expert who once did it so you can actually do it. Obviously, you can do it yourself, but that takes time. That takes like a lot of effort. Yeah. And just getting started takes so much more mental capacity and energy than somebody like, oh yeah, I did that 20 times. Let's just make a quick upload.
Right. So a term in the web design world is SaaS. So that's software as a service. Yeah. And so that's very common now, and it's actually kind of a problem in the web design world in the way that like as a web designer, I feel like I have all these memberships now, and it can get kind of debilitating, to be honest. Where like I pay for this website builder, and then I pay this other company to have extra tools for that website builder, and then I pay this company in order to do like website loading time optimization automatically. Yeah. And before you know it, you have all of these like segmented things that
it's like 20 Hulu accounts.
Yeah, and it really sucks is when you have a client that you start hating using that tool, but then that client still wants to use that tool, and so you're keeping that one bill going through just for that one client.
Chopping.
Yeah,
chop them.
Yeah, so it gets really tough in that regard. But we live in that time period though that like for anything you need, there's a solution, but everything's segmented. So it's like almost our role as a creative is to bring in all these disparate things together for a client, because there's no way. Sometimes I think like there's no way my client could know all of these different things that are out there.
Even we cannot know. Like there's like how many AI tools coming out, how many ChatGPT free versions, how many Google Bard and whatever, and every week it's like 200 new uploads. You need somebody who's just consolidating your problems and solves them. Yeah. And it's like some people will do a better job or worse job, but they will still be better as a beginner than you doing it yourself. Like if the mom and pop shop is like, I'm going to make myself a website. Well, even a beginner who maybe made 5 websites is better than you. And what is sad, but obviously you should go with the best thing you can afford. And there's benefits, but you need to, trust other people, and it's very scary.
Yeah. Well, and understand that, it's scary for your clients to trust you too. I think I forget that a lot too when I start a new project, that it's like, they're just trying to trust you. It's hard. You're in a whole new world that you don't know, and so that or they don't know, so they don't want to like make the wrong decision. And so for us, it's like, we kind of have to have our process pretty nailed down, right? Because in that kickoff meeting, if we're talking about all these different platforms and they start to think like, I don't think he actually has like a way of doing things. It seems like he's reinventing the wheel every single new project. Yeah, that can be kind of scary. So it's like, it's both, right? We have to be our own R&D departments, and that can be hard, right? Where you have to on the side. So as a web designer, I usually that's my website, but I haven't touched my own website in like 3 years now because I've been so dang busy. Yeah. So my R&D has kind of fallen through the cracks a little bit. Thankfully we've had this podcast, and that's helped me with the AI part of it. But arguably, if we didn't have this podcast, I maybe wouldn't have played with AI as much either in the very beginning as I did.
Yeah. So the R&D part is like, it is powerful, also like very scary, because like there's so much to learn, so much to do, so much to experiment, and like that's where I think I do like a good job. I experiment with a lot of things, and when I see something is working, I'm like, oh, I can offer that to other people. What can be scary because like, Fitz, did you ever do that? It's like,
you assume the master. I'm a master now. Yeah, I like it, so I'm a master.
Yeah, no, but it's not about being the master. It's like, oh no, I can like posting reels, the easiest thing ever. As long as you post reels, you get the views, kind of, but it's like, it's not like the guaranteed, but now you can post social media content and it shows up under that certain phrase. You immediately can test it immediately works. But how you package the thing is also really powerful, because like you say you do websites, but you also do the whole machine, and you can highlight certain parts differently. You still do the same thing, but you just focus on different things and phrase it differently, and I think that is very powerful, right? And that is like a skill by itself, where it's like you need to phrase yourself or highlight certain things better, versus like, oh no, I'm a web and brand designer, versus like, oh no, I'm making money with your website. You can phrase it, it's the same thing, but you phrase it differently.
Well, yeah, and what I would suggest to people, something I've been doing recently, is listen to what your clients are telling you. The happy clients, they'll tell you how to describe yourself. And I've had some clients that have had some good points recently. I had one client where they kind of had this web design team that's kind of been part of the project that's been breathing down my neck the whole time of like, just give it to us, just give it to us, just give it to us. And she said it really well the other day, where she's like, well, the reason I'm going with you, Sean, is because you come from a design first place, that you come from a place that you want this to be beautiful, and that's where you start. And that's why I'm using you, not a developer, because developers don't care if it's beautiful.
They want sales.
And I want this to be beautiful, and I want it to improve the brand visually. That's why I'm going with you. And I'm like, well, that's what I need to say. That's my differentiator then, is that I went to art school and I'm making your website.
I told you that on the other website. You got to lean into that. Like, it's not made by AI. It is made by Sean. You know, it's not the $20. Or it was not a podcast. It was on the text.
Is a real.
You got to lean into that thing, you know? You got to lean into the Sean. What makes Sean, you know?
Well, yeah. Well, and one of the things that I described to you in the million texts that I sent after you triggered me after that, was a good point of like, I'm the Apple iPhone. If you can't afford the Apple iPhone, then go get a Motorola. I have no problem with that. You know, if you want to go get a cheap $5 website, then go for it. I'm the iPhone. I don't care. Plenty of iPhones get sold for being super duper expensive. People find thousands of dollars to get this thing somehow. Even if they're poor, they still have an iPhone.
Yeah. And there's a benefit, but the people see the benefit of the iPhone, you know, and it's like the iPhone's job to communicate like, hey, I'm expensive. I have all those benefits. I have just works. It's just like beneficial,
and
you know.
And it's unapologetic. You never see an iPhone go for $50, $100. They don't ever have like, now you can get an iPhone. Like maybe at the beginning they were giving them away for free, maybe, but there's no discounts for iPhones. They don't care. The new iPhone comes out and it's expensive as hell. And they're like, yep, that's it. That's what you got to pay to be cool. People want to be cool, so they pay it.
Yeah.
So that's how I think as a creative, right? You are like, especially if you're a small shop, which most of people that are watching this podcast, I'm going to imagine are probably young people that like, you are a boutique shop. I've said it on the past podcast, is think of your time as a table. There's six, maybe 5 seats at that table. How much do each of those seats cost? You know?
Yeah.
You know, and when you really think about your time, right, and how much you want to get paid, each of those seats are pretty pricey. But don't apologize about that. Like, you have value. It's hard to find good people out there to do stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I would say, is that, like, you know, we're boutique shops, but think of that. Think of the word boutique, right? You don't go into a boutique and be like hand wringing. You know what you're walking into. It looks like an expensive store, right?
Yeah.
And if you're boyfriend, you're with your girlfriend, you're gonna start getting nervous real quick because she's loving it all, and you're just like, I know they're gonna want a premium price, and this is the only place you can get the alpaca fur scarf thing, whatever. And so, you know, have that same type of mentality. Be unapologetic and be nice and be like, you know, if they're like, you know what, you're just out of our budget and we really should just go with free option, be like, so that's okay. You're not ready.
Yeah, I get that. I just had like an idea or a concept in mind, what is very powerful. You know, when you go into a store and they have those checkout things, you go a certain way in and you go a certain way out, and you have to go through the cash register area. And that makes you sometimes feel like I just want to look at stuff, but now I need to buy because I want to see the stuff, and now I'm in the thing and I'm expected to buy. Sometimes you just buy something to be seeing all the options that you have. You maybe didn't go in there to buy something, but they forced you in a way to buy something. And I was like thinking now, if you're like a web designer, online shop or whatever, and you want to sell something, maybe you have to, like, you know, make it a card where you add on, but it's on a different page. And only if you go through all the pages, you see all the add-ons that you can have. Oh, you want to have one video? Or you want to actually have a drone shot on there on the second page, you know, and you add on, and so that you see what you could all add on. And now you feel guilty for like not checking out, you know? So you have to have that experience where you're like, oh, I added all that stuff on, or I saw all that stuff. Now I'm like, I think I should buy something at least. That's an interesting concept. You know what I mean? Obviously, it doesn't translate one-to-one on like a shopping cart or whatever, but it's like, I would love to have like an experience where it's like, oh, I kind of feel guilty for buying something, you know, not buying something.
Well, let's look at lawyers for a second, right? How do lawyers handle this? Well, they charge for the first consultation most times. Sometimes they'll do a free one, maybe, but it's 30 minutes. They make sure to say that. I'll give you a free 30 minutes, but you better have your shit together in that 30 minutes because I'm only giving you 30 minutes for free. And if you come in and you're like, I don't know, I kind of want to do a lawsuit, then I'm not going to hire you. Because that's the thing. I've had that before with lawyers where they like, not necessarily with me, with other people I was helping, where they said, nope, I don't want to help you.
Yeah.
And that's very powerful because like yet again they have all the cards then in that case and so maybe for you it's like okay, yeah, the initial consultation I will give you a discounted hourly rate, so you have to pay me $50, only $50 for my first hour, and in that first hour what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick apart your problem. I'm going to give you some solutions already out of the gate for free, which we do anyway. We do it in that first meeting. We're giving them freely.
Yeah.
You know, and because that's the thing I struggle with is I give a lot away for free sometimes, and I get it back a lot of the time, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you give a lot away in that first meeting and you never hear from them again. Like, cool, thanks for all the secrets to the industry. Bye.
That's how I kind of feel, and that's like kind of annoying. You know, when I teach, like sometimes I have people on my other podcast and I tell them about like, because they do things that I admire and like, and they don't know what I know. And I teach them and like, okay, now I teach them and it's like gone. You know, I'm like, but how do you monetize this, you know? And I had like sales calls where I'm like, okay, hey, if you call me and I'll have you on the phone, I at least talk to you and we maybe build a relationship, you know, to connect on a different level instead of just texting. And I give you some tips, you know? And then it maybe doesn't translate to anything new, but like, yeah, I feel like I'm giving stuff away and don't receive, you know?
Yeah, and that may be just because, you know, you're giving a lot, but then you're not creating that route, that cash register that you were talking about. You didn't create that route back to paying you. You give them all these things, but you don't do a good job of tying that back to how you can help. So like, for example, my accountant's a good example too. When I had my first meeting with my accountant, it's not like I'd promised anything with him, and he could have been in that meeting and not told me anything. Well, we'll do stuff for your taxes, but I don't want to tell you yet until you're my client. No, he's like, no, you should do this, you should do this. But what hooks me in as a client is that I start to hear things in between the words that I'm like, I don't actually understand the things he says. Like I maybe kind of do, but in my head, my head's telling me like, Sean, he seems to know a lot the way he's talking about. And, you know, he's giving you stuff now, but he's not giving you everything. Yeah. And so the more you can have your clients start to say the same things where you're like, oh, okay, so he's not really like Fitzy's telling me, yeah, you got to do reels and clips and stuff, but did he really tell you anything else? Did he really give you any of the tips and stuff? So I think in your case, it's like, give them that road. Like, you know, you need to do more reels and clips. That's where it's at. But then
I don't know, long form content, for example.
But sprinkle stuff in there, right? You got to sprinkle more of the bigger picture in there.
I like that. That is like, you know, that's kind of what I kind of wanted to hear, because like I had that one client on the phone. I'm like, oh yeah, you should do reels. You should do like capture B-roll so you can later on run your Facebook ads and you have actually things to show. If you don't film anything, it's not safe. You don't have B-roll of you installing. Kind of wasted, you know, and you can get two birds with one stone. You film some reels and, you know, have good marketing material, but also like you don't show up when I search your business. So I implemented that seed of like, yeah, your competitor showed up, you didn't show up. It's kind of sad. And yeah, that is maybe like a thing that is powerful.
Well, I like that too. I do like the, you know, and obviously this is something that like most things you got to get to be a fast thing, obviously, because it's one thing I've started to do in meetings too. I haven't really talked about this on the podcast. We can almost have a whole podcast on this, but of like before and after meetings, that's something I've really started to implement. But this year is that I always schedule 30 minutes before a big meeting, not every meeting on the planet, but at big meetings, like a new kickoff meeting, there's always 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after. The 30 minutes after, I've kind of talked about of how important it is for you to summarize everything while it's still fresh in your mind and send out emails to clients that moment. Don't wait like a whole day. Don't wait. But the beginning, before that meeting, that's when, you search their stuff on Google, take a screenshot, you know. You can go into Google Search Console and see how much people are. You can even use SEMrush, and you can even go in there for free, and it'll actually analyze their website if you put in their URL. You can get all these things and kind of analyze, and as long as you have a very quick flow, this could all take place in 5 or 10 minutes. Put it together quickly into a template that you have in InDesign or something. Now you have a PDF. Now in the meeting, you're already blowing their mind and you don't have to share this PDF with them. Like, don't be too giving, but you know, you could have it on the screen. Let them take a screenshot of it. It's just a low res screenshot, but yet again, you gave them that taste of like, oh my God, he's already dug into it. Because that's the perfect thing is in the meeting starts there like, all right, Fitz, so we as a company, we found that we need to do more videos along long form content, things like that. And then you can be like, well, actually, I looked at one of your competitors, your top competitor now in the city. He's actually going full reels. Let's look at his numbers real quick. And you've already pulled that info and you're putting that PDF on the screen.
That's usually what I do when I when I'm like contacting, I basically make a full background check on the social media and basically see what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. Can add something or can I not add something? And that's like the thing, like when the competitor shows up and you don't even have a video on YouTube and you're not even showing up on like Google Business or whatever. Obviously, I'm not utilizing that aspect, but it's like, it's one thing to not show up under like, oh yeah, in this city as a web designer or videographer, it's one thing where you need an address for your business. But the other thing is like a video. You at least should have a video where it's showing up like under your brand name, that you are like building trust if they like doing a research. Because like some people do that quick research. Is he a scam? Is he actually a real thing? Who's that person? Do I like that person? You know, when I talk to a barber, I want to know what the experience is like if I walk into that store. And it's like, it builds more trust if you saw the store and you already have like a visual. It's like when you go into Google and you see like a restaurant. Oh, this is the vibe. I like that vibe, you know, and you walk in.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, obviously there's multiple things. So it's like, as long as you have that list, right? So you're talking about like reputation management, right? So yeah, maybe you should even go into Yelp. Maybe you should be looking at the Google reviews for a client and stuff. Cause then you can start to be like, well, I see you're getting a lot of bad reviews. We really need to like combat that. So how do we combat that? Maybe we make a reel that pushes people to review your company. You know, so it's like, if you can start to come up with these types of things, then you're going in with a plan. And yet again, you know, you can be like, you can really market that first meeting as like $50. In this meeting, you're going to get a complimentary PDF that's going to show you kind of where you are standing. I'm going to share with you at this. I'm going to give you actionable steps, and then I'll give you the choice. You either run with me or you can take it all and go. Totally fine. I won't be offended. And then you got a $50 kind of person, so they paid for your time at least. And then who knows? It's a new network. It's a new thing. And then who knows? At the end of the meeting, you say, they're like, you know what, Fitz, I don't think I'm going to go with this, but this was such an awesome meeting. You're like, okay, well, if it's an awesome meeting, please, do you mind like QR coding the screen real quick? I'm going to put this up. Can you review this meeting and say how nice it is? And you'd be surprised. A lot of people, they'll be like, okay, well, you just gave me all this stuff, and now you're allowing me to leave. The least I could do is give you a review, and then it's a positive. It's like you're getting everything out of every meeting.
That was very powerful. I like having that conversation. You know, where you sometimes have a podcast, you're just like, I would kind of roll with the punches, you know, and it's like, it's evolving into a thing where it's like, oh, that was actually very beneficial. So one of my clients, he will get a juicy email.
Nice. But yeah, so for all of you guys out there, you know, do the same thing. I would say, you know, figure out what that is in the process. Because, you know, you probably are giving away stuff for free right now. And not saying to stop that, but yeah, how can you make that work for you better, you know? But yeah, it's been a great podcast.
Yeah, it's a little change, you know, talking about the little changes and how it comes full circle, you know, implementing that, like, hey, quick record of the client telling you, hey, you did a good job. I like that, even though it was free.
Right, 100%. Yeah. So small things, and the only thing I would add on to that is just know what the process is now, and maybe that's the small thing, is capturing the process. If you don't even know what your own process is, maybe that's the first small thing. Start writing down the process.
That is a thing where I need to improve a little bit, you know, like where it's like, okay, I had the client on the phone. I have multiple things that I can offer where I'm confident about it, you know. But I was like, where do you go with that? You know, having that funnel, the sales funnel, having the product actually laid out, knowing what to push, what are the opportunities, what is like more leading into his niche that you actually solve his problem versus like, oh, he wants Facebook ads. Now I'm pushing him like organic content. It's like, still, it's both video, but it's like,
100%. Yeah. So exactly. It's all it's having that blueprint, at least to a degree. You don't have to have it all figured out, but if you have reasons for stuff, people love that. People start to fall out of love with you when they feel like you don't have any reasons. You have excuses. When reasons change into excuses, then you start to lose clients. Then you start to lose partners.
Yeah. So that is very, very powerful. On this note, I think we kind of shall say goodbye to all the listeners. But
yeah, we'll have more in person. We have a couple more in person podcasts here while I'm here in the good old Florida state. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Rate and like the podcast.